So we're going to perform basically our seated flow in a chair, making it accessible for people who have a hard time getting down on the ground, people with disabilities or who are older or who have health problems. So we're going to start exactly like we do, sitting up nice and straight on our chair with our hands together, taking a nice inhale and exhale. We might even want to do a yoni mudra, interlacing the fingers and putting the thumbs and the index fingers together in front of our abdomen or about an inch underneath our belly button. You could spend a lot more time in the beginning of your class meditating and teaching people how to do a mantra or how to do a mudra, only because what we want to focus on is really getting people to focus on their breath, their body, and also release any anxiety or stress. We're going to start with some easy breathing techniques, which is inhaling and sweeping your arms all the way over your head, bringing your palms together and drawing your hands back down to your heart. So now we start with the head rolls. And one of the things you want to remember when you are teaching people who are elderly or are having health conditions, and we live in a country where people are not healthy and there's a lot of obese people, and I don't mean people who think that they're heavy or overweight. I mean people who have serious problems with obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, and the like. You want to move a lot slower with these individuals because they suffer from a lot of pain, chronic pain and illness, dizziness, and so we're trying to make the Lazy Monkey yoga class as accessible as possible. We're going to talk a lot more about that in our live sessions. We're going to roll our shoulders back. Hopefully you're sitting in a chair right now, practicing along with me, doing the shoulder rolls and reversing those shoulder rolls. Now what you want to make sure is that you're sitting up nice and tall and the sits bones are actually in the middle of the seat or almost a little bit farther forward, so that you have the ability to keep the feet flat on the floor and have a nice long spine. We want to use a hard chair to do the exercise, but you can always put a cushion or preferably like a blanket, a yoga blanket, on the chair if they feel that the hard chair is, uncomfortable. But what you have to realize is yoga isn't necessarily comfortable, so we can only accommodate people so much. But if you want to put a yoga blanket on a folding chair, that would be sufficient for most people that we're trying to access. And we're going to circle those wrists, look up and reach, and roll the wrist down. Preferably sitting in the chair, they're going to have a 90-degree angle that goes from the hip to the knee and then from the knee to the floor. Scooting forward a little bit more on the chair if you need to. We can do those spinal twists, little twists with fingers interlaced behind the back. Good. And we're going to do our eagle arms, interlacing the fingers. Now for this particular flow, you're going to want to get them to separate their legs, kind of come into a seated horse stance. So the feet, the balls of the feet, the toes, the heels are flat on the floor, grounded on the floor. They're going to open up their legs and come into a seated horse stance, really, which is going to give them stability in order to rock from side to side. We still want to fold forward and we want to look up. Good, and get a nice stretch in the shoulders. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Another thing I want to include talking about in this video, of course we're going to be talking about this more, is whenever you're structuring a yoga class for, let's say, people who have, for an older population or people who are having physical problems, is that the regular class format in a yoga class that you see, a hatha yoga class of the up and down, sun salutations, getting up and down off the ground, that is not accessible to a lot of people. So in this particular class structure, what we try to do is we try to break the class into 15 to 20 minute long series. And as you can see, this video is about 17 minutes long. We break the series down into 4 15-minute long components or portions where we do everything seated, and then we do everything reclining. We do anything that we want on our hands and our knees. Most of the time we do not lay on our abdomen at all to do any back work, because that is too strenuous for most people. So the structure of the class really would be the seated portion, which replaces the seated part of lazy monkey floor work. We would go down onto our hands and our knees, and we would do modified sun salutations, as well as any quadruped work. And then we would end up maybe sitting on the floor and doing a few stretches, and then reclining on the back and doing light abdominal work and spinal twists. But I really wanted to show you the modification for the lazy monkey yoga seated flow in a chair. And as you can see, we've pretty much done everything. I'm taking a big forward fold here, because this is about the best forward fold you're going to get using a chair in this position. So we're actually working on keeping the legs spread and the stance very, very wide now. The reason why is because that's creating a stable base in order for them to do their forward fold and also their lateral flexion. We're still going to do the exact same thing. The most important part of teaching an older population and a population that has disabilities is you want them to feel successful. You want them to feel good about themselves when they leave, not because we're trying to make people happy, but for people who have a lot of physical problems, the concept of being able to practice yoga or the desire to practice yoga seems unachievable to them, because when they see yoga in books and on social media and on television, they see people who are doing the splits and back bends and all of these incredible postures. And so it feels very unachievable to start a yoga practice. And so that's why this yoga practice is so crucial and so important, because it's so adaptable to just about any population. Now, what you have to remember is that you're not going to be able to teach everyone. You're not going to be able to teach everyone. And if someone does not have the ability to sit in a chair or even get down on the ground or get up off the ground, they probably should not be taking a class with other students. They should be taking a class as a private lesson. So the whole seated position, posture flow that we do with our legs crossed, we simply do that just with one leg crossed over. I included a little bit of a foot massage, because doing some self-massage and self-acupuncture or even self-Reiki as part of or integrated into your class is actually a really good idea. And one good thing about having this population is you do have a captive audience to tell them about energy work and Reiki and mudra and mantra and everything else. So what I did was I interlaced my fingers between my toes and I gave myself a little bit of a stretch. Now I want to say that the pose I'm doing right now is probably a pose that you won't do often, maybe if at all, because of the fact that doing a forward fold in that cross-legged position on the chair is definitely not easy. It's not even easy for me, but I wanted to include it anyway, just in case you have a group of people who are spry, or maybe you're working with someone who has open hips. So first we focus on the hip opening stretch, and then we do a nice gentle massage on the inside of the foot. Self-massage is very comforting and soothing. And once again, spreading the fingers wide and then interlacing those fingers between the toes. I think I'm enjoying that massage a little too much. And then if you want to circle out the ankle a little bit to give some movement to the ankles. So once again, I want to re-emphasize, if somebody comes to you and if someone is interested in taking the modified version of the Lazy Monkey Yoga class, a couple of questions I would ask them is, do you have the ability to get up and down off the ground? That would be one thing. The second thing I would ask them is, are you going to have a problem sitting erect in a chair for about 15 minutes, or would you have a problem being on your hands or in your knees for 5 to 10 minutes? And that will give you an idea about whether or not that person is going to be able to do the practice. And if a person doesn't have the ability to get up and down off the ground by themselves, not with help, that person probably needs individualized care, and you should offer them a private lesson, because unfortunately we don't have the ability to accommodate everyone's health conditions. Okay, so we're going to do some inhaling and standing up, sweeping our arms overhead, and then sitting down into a chair. And we're going to reach up, inhale, arms overhead, and then sit our booty back into a chair to actually sit down. So the idea is that you're using your legs to get up out of the chair without having to use your hands to push yourself to stand up out of the chair, if you understand what I mean. So that's some leg work for the quads. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to go into a warrior pose, a warrior two pose. And in warrior two, we're going to do, we're still going to go for that modified side angle. Now I realize that we have not covered warriors as far as sun salutations are concerned yet. We will. I wanted to include this in the video so that you got the full effect of the chair work. So we go into a sun salutation with our sits bones seated on the chair. We have a wide stance and we have a very strong base. And that's when we do some reversed warriors. Yes. Now, once again, this is a complicated movement pattern. So I don't necessarily think that if you're teaching a class that you're going to do this. I just wanted to show you options for what you can do with the chair. Great, everybody. So that is a little example of the lazy monkey class in a chair. And we're going to discuss this a lot in our live session on Zoom.